Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then my name is Hosanna, and on this channel we talk about tech, career and lifestyle. On today's video, I wanted to discuss imposter syndrome. I know that on my platform I usually discuss quite positive topics, but I thought it'd be good to share some realities as well today. So imposter syndrome is something that I've been dealing with for quite a while now, so I thought it'd be good to share my experience, my learnings, and hopefully help anyone else who's struggling with this. There are so many ways to deal with imposter syndrome, and there are hundreds of videos online which you can watch. I'm just going to give my perspective today and really give the advice and tips that have helped me along the way. For those who don't know, imposter syndrome is essentially feeling like you're a fraud, like you haven't earned your accomplishments, like you're faking it, and essentially being scared that one day you're going to be found out. The word syndrome makes it seem like it's a disease or an abnormality, but really it's not. It's a very common feeling that many people experience. People often assume that the more successful you are, the less likely you are to experience imposter syndrome, but that's actually completely untrue. Even some of the greats like Albert Einstein and Maya Angelou have also been reported with struggling with this. My first real experience with imposter syndrome was when I was hired at Microsoft. Being hired at one of the largest, biggest, most successful tech companies in the world definitely made me feel like I was a fraud. I had so much imposter syndrome when I first started, and really a lot of self-doubt, and I really started to feel like I was almost lucky to get the job and I didn't really deserve it. My thoughts were along the lines of maybe I was lucky on the day, maybe I had good recruiters, they were really nice, or maybe my assessment center was somehow easier than everybody else's. All of these thoughts led to me feeling like I didn't deserve to be where I was, which is really ridiculous when I look back on it now, because I definitely have the experience, the knowledge and the credentials to be an excellent hire, so of course I deserve to get the job. But that is what imposter syndrome does to you. It really makes you feel like you haven't achieved your accomplishments even though you have. Even now when people ask me how I got into Microsoft, I almost always downplay the reasons why I was hired, even though I know that I obviously have 2 degrees from one of the top universities in the countries. I also have good work experience, and those are probably the real reasons why I was hired. But imposter syndrome makes me feel almost like I shouldn't recognize those reasons. I think that brings us nicely onto the first lesson and the first piece of advice that I have when it comes to overcoming imposter syndrome, and that is to remember your value. You are where you are because you deserve it, and you have achieved some amazing things, and you should definitely acknowledge that. I am big on journaling, so what I do is I write down a lot of the milestones that I have, both for work and also being a content creator, so that I can look back and see that I've grown and see that I've done a lot of work, and the success that I have coming my way is because of all the great work that I've done. And you can do this on a weekly or monthly basis, but I actually like to do it on a daily basis. At the end of each day, I ask myself, what have I achieved today? And I write it down just in my diary. And then on a monthly basis, I review everything. And this really helps me to feel a lot more confident in the things that I'm doing. It can literally be anything from today I helped a customer, or today I learned a new skill. It doesn't have to be anything extensive. This is really just about getting your achievements down on paper so that in the future you can look back on them and remember the value that you bring to everything that you do. Remember that it doesn't matter if there are 1,000 other people doing the same thing as you. They're not going to do it the way you do it. They're not going to share the insight in the way that you share it, and they're not going to be able to have the same perspective as you. You bring something amazing, and there's a reason why people follow you. So just try and remember that, and again, go back to the value that you bring. Becoming a content creator has definitely been a roller coaster of emotions, with imposter syndrome being a constant feeling along the way. So every day before posting on social media, so on Instagram and especially on YouTube, I always question myself. I always ask myself whether or not my content is even helping anyone. Does anybody care? Who am I to feel like I can even support people and help them get a job in tech? So even though I've managed to get myself a job in tech, and I've helped other people in real life one-to-one, and I've managed to accumulate this audience of almost 11,000 people with the work that I'm doing on Instagram and of course on YouTube, I still feel like a bit of a fraud. I always feel like surely there are other YouTubers and content creators who are more experienced, who have better content, who are more likely to help people than me and the content that I bring. I have a real fear that people watch my content and think, who is she even helping? Like, you're a fraud and you don't deserve to have the platform which you have created. Even as I'm making this video about imposter syndrome, I'm thinking, I'm sure there are better YouTubers to talk about imposter syndrome. I'm sure my content is not going to be as helpful as other people's. This is why I feel that lesson 2 is really important, and this is to remind yourself to identify your fears and just address them head on. So to overcome this feeling, what I do is that I simply talk about my fears with other people. To address them, I speak to my family, I speak to my friends, and I even speak to you guys. And what I do is I get feedback about the content that I'm creating. This really helps because getting someone else's perspective helps you to kind of get out of your own head and stop being so critical of yourselves. As they say, you are your biggest critic. If you're struggling with imposter syndrome, I would definitely suggest speaking to someone else. Getting that objective view helps you to recognize the fact that those thoughts might just be in your head. You might feel like you're doing absolutely rubbish while other people think that you are absolutely amazing. Getting that objective view and speaking to someone else about the fears and imposter syndrome that you're struggling with will not only help to quieten those voices in your head, but it will also make you realize how magnified things are when they are left in your own head. When you internalize things, you make them seem much worse than they actually are. So if you share your imposter syndrome with other people, you share how you're feeling, then it makes you realize that things aren't as big of a big deal as you thought that they were. And more than likely, the people who you have spoken to are going to hype you up and give you the support that you need. Like, think about all the times that you've heard someone that you care about say that they're doing really badly at something, or that they're rubbish, or that they're struggling with something. You probably thought, what are you talking about? I think you are doing amazing and that you're incredible. That's how other people view you, and you really need to remember that. I get some really great comments and messages from you guys on Instagram, and I really think that that helps me with my imposter syndrome when it comes to being a content creator. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, guys, as well. I have recently started a new job. If you have me on Instagram, you would have seen the announcement when I started. So I've gone from essentially my graduate job to being a fully fledged employee without the graduate tab attached to me. And this has made my imposter syndrome definitely rear its ugly head. I am no longer being thought as a graduate. I am now a product lead, and people really come to me for guidance and thoughts on how we should go to market with this product, and that is just absolutely crazy to me. While this is exciting, as I said, it has also meant that I'm dealing with imposter syndrome again, feeling like I'm too young to be in this role, I don't have enough experience, and constantly feeling that I essentially might fail. So the one thing that has helped me to overcome this, and the final lesson for today, is to use imposter syndrome to my advantage. So that sounds really strange, but I've recently watched a TED talk by a guy called Mike Cannon-Brookes, where he talks about how you can harness the feeling of imposter syndrome and use it for good. So this is about recognizing that yes, you have imposter syndrome, but using that as a driving force. So it's about pinpointing the underlying cause of that imposter syndrome and doing something physically which is going to help you overcome it, rather than just thinking about it. For me, in my situation and in my new job, I know that my imposter syndrome stems from not being as technical as I could be, and not as technical as other people who have previously been in this role. And what I plan to do is simply just skill up, have a plan on how I'm going to get from A, not being as technical as I could be, to B, being really technically competent. I know which areas I need to skill up on, and I know which resources that I can use to help me with my learning. All of this is really helping me to overcome my imposter syndrome, because I know that I won't always be in the situation that I'm in right now. I won't always feel like I'm not technical enough, and it's great to have a plan. Whatever your imposter syndrome is telling you, just remember that you are not alone with dealing with this, and you will absolutely be able to overcome it. Like I said today, remember your value, talk to other people, and definitely definitely put a plan in place on how you can grow and improve. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you found it useful. Like I said at the beginning, I really wanted to just address some realities that comes with kind of working, and specifically working in tech, I would say, and that is imposter syndrome. I hope the tips that I gave today are helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram. Please go like, share, comment, and of course subscribe, and I will see you at my next video.